Okay, so here is our assignment, Simple CRUD with MySQL. The first thing it asks us to do is to create a new table called ConsoleDB, and it's going to have these fields in it. An ID, as all tables should have, a first name, a last name, and a favorite number. So I already have my console.db here. I have, if you guys can see, it says first name, last name, and fave num, and I have a few users already added to it. Cool. So we're starting with the table already created. Um, awesome. So just some tips on how to get some input from your user. Cool. So let's start a new project. I'm gonna go to my desktop, and I am going to .NET new console -o SQL CRUD. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Cool. And I will take that, plop it right into my VS Code text editor, which will open up. Cool. We're using edit. Make this a little bigger. Cool. All right, we're in business. Let's try running this once. What did I call it? SQL CRUD. Let's .NET run. Hopefully I get a nice hello world. Yes. Still got it. Cool. So let's start building out this application. So the premise of this application is to be able to read from your database, to be able to add new users to your database. And there are a couple of bonuses to delete users from the database and to update any entries in your database. Does that make sense? Cool. So I'm going to build kind of like the games in the um, hackathon you guys did yesterday, kind of like a console-based interface where a user can communicate with my program, right? So I can do something like, welcome to my awesome SQL CRUD demo. And maybe I can have a console.writeLine statement that says something like, please choose what? Your choose action. And I'll give them a few options of like read, what else? Add.
Read, add, delete, update.
Very nice. Thank you. Delete and or update. Do I need a comma there after delete?
Yes.
I do need this?
Yes. I think after delete.
Okay. Cool. So let's try that. Please choose action. Read, add, delete, or update. So what I'm going to do now, sorry, I'm going to move this over here so it's less shifted. I am going to store in a console.readLine something like action. Cool. And then I can console.writeLine. You have chosen something like this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So I will do. So now my console's waiting for me for some input. It looks like I forgot or a, whatever you call it right here. Yeah, or a quotation, closing tick. Anyways, read, add, delete, or update. So I think I will delete. Let's say you have chosen delete. Cool. So something should happen after that. Cool. So how about I continue to do this while, I hope this works. I don't really know what I'm doing. Action does not equal quit. I'm going to continue to, what should I do? Will this run forever until I type quit? Okay.
I didn't quit as an option.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I should add that to my actions. You're right. So I can do something like read. Oh, that was what I was afraid of. Why did that happen?
Because
Yeah.
action's
Because-
always not quit.
Oh, yes, that's right. So what do I need to do here? I need to do this, right? Wait, is this right? I don't know, my brain is fried right now. Yes.
Why did you create a blank up there first?
Just so my while statement can evaluate what action is. Let me see if that works. Read. You have chosen read. Add. You have chosen add. Updates. Chosen updates. Bananas. You have chosen bananas. Or quit, and then quit will eventually quit my application. So I need to add this. Or quit. And I feel like this should go in here too. No, that can't go in there. This should be here. Cool. All right. So, what can I do now then? Since I have this Q&A type of action happening where my application's asking me what I want to do and I can enter it, right?
The first one is to read, right?
Read? Cool. So if my user types in read, then I should do something. If my user types in add, I should do something. If my user types in some jarbled garbage like bananas, then I should also do something, right? So it sounds like I need a series of like if checks or something like that. Is that what you guys would do? Have you guys heard of switch cases? Switch case?
Once, yeah.
Switch cases are a lot like if else's, but much faster in performance because it doesn't have to evaluate some type of truthy or falsy statement. It'll just go immediately to what the you could say like the key is, right? So I'll show you what a switch case looks like. You have chosen blah. I think it's just switch, and based on what action is. Do I need this? I do need that. Wait, do I need that? I don't know. I'll have a bunch of cases like read, which will, I think I need break statements too. Oh, okay, perfect. So I'll have a bunch of cases, right? That my code will switch to based on what this variable is. So if this variable is read, it'll go to this one.
Yeah.
If it's add, it'll go to this one. If it's update or delete is the first one, it'll go to this one. Update will go here. Quits will go here. And default, someone said, will be my kind of catch all statement where I'll be like, sorry, That is not a valid what? Request option. Try again. Cool. So now I can do something like in read, just so you guys can kind of see what will happen in here. And quit should quit. Goodbye. Cool. Moment of truth. Let's do this.
I like how you did the catch-all with the default. What if you had a valid default value? Is there any other way to do a catch-all?
Sorry?
That case that you had that would catch anything that's not a read, whatever, because you said the default. Otherwise, it'll do. This is not valid unless it's one of the valid ones.
Yes.
What if you had a default that you needed to use and you still wanted to have a catch-all like that? Is there another way to do it?
If you had a default that you wanted to use.
You're right. Like if you said a default isn't. It's not that. If it's not one of these, default to this. What if you had a value you want to default? Like, oh, if someone does something, do this by default. But then is there still another way to do that or not? Does that make sense? Does my question make sense?
Not really,
I
because
can
that's
skip it.
because that's what the default is, right? That's what happens when. Well, ask me again later.
I'll ask
yeah,
you later.
yeah, ask me. Yeah, cool. So I will type in something like bananas, and it'll say, "Sorry, that is not a valid option. Try again." I'll say, "Please, bananas," and it'll say no, and then I'll do something like read, and then now I've entered the read case. Does that make sense?
Right.
My update will enter the update case. And then I can finally quit, which will say goodbye, and then now my program is ended. Does that make sense? So not a lot of code, a lot of kind of similar things that are happening, right? But you can see the power of a switch case, right? It's like a very fast if-else statement. All I'm asking is them to choose an action, and then depending on what they give me, I am switching to one of these cases. Any questions so far? No? Cool. So let's actually use some SQL. So in order for me to interact with my MySQL database, what do I need to do?
Using.
You need to be using the. Well, first thing, don't you have to create a new file for that?
Yeah, I need a DB connector file. We've created that for you, and we can talk about this file in some detail because it can be confusing, but I don't want you guys to get scared by it. It's pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to do is create a new file, call it dbconnection.cs. I'm just going to paste that sucker right in there. Cool. Now I have some errors because I don't have the correct dependencies installed into my application yet. I don't have MySQL in my application yet, right? I can't just use SQL out of thin air. I have to tell my application to use it. So there is a this CS proj file is where all of our dependencies will be stored. So we could just add it to this file, like type it into this file, and then .NET restore, which executes my CS proj file. But there is a nice command line interface that .NET Core 1.1 allows us to do, which is this .NET add package commands, and you just add the package right after it. So you will need to know what the name of the package is and the version that you're of it that you need. So there is some like research that you'll have to do, or copy and pasting, or some trial and error that you'll have to do. But for us, we have the version right here, which is mysql.data. Perfect. Version 707. That dash star means any extension off of 707. So we will run this. And boom, there it is. MySQL.data gets added to my file, right? If there are any other dependencies, just for you guys, just so you guys know, and what you guys will see later is there will be a bunch of these package references like these, different than the one that we have. All of these are the same, of course, but you'll have different dependencies listed out in these package reference tags.
Donovan, does this create a link now to the SQL that we have on our computers?
No, this just allows us to interact with a MySQL database. We haven't actually connected to my actual MySQL database. We'll get to that though. So I'm going to save this. It looks like my VS Code is prompting me to restore. So I will. And again, a .NET Restore just executes your CSproj file and just updates your application according to what dependencies are listed there, which we have one new one. So we have MySQL now. So if we go to DB connection, all of those red underlines under like MySQL and .data, all of those have gone away, right? So it looks like my file looks good. But what the heck is this file, right? So there are some attributes at the top of this DB connector class. These are just variables that will be interpolated into this MySQL connection string. You guys see how it's being interpolated, right? Server, port. So we don't need all of these variables. We can just hard code the string directly into here, but it makes it easy for us to see. If I check MySQL's ports, I'm using 8889. My SQL port is 8889, right? So what I will do is update my port to 8889. My username and password are both roots. Don't tell anybody. My DB name is console DB. Oops. So console DB. Cool. And if I save, this IDB connection object of connection will actually return that connection for me. So now I am connected with my MySQL server. I don't know. So this IDB connection that my cursor is on, this IDB connection object that we've called connection, right? This get statement is what actually connects us to our MySQL server. I don't know totally how. It's a lot of underlying code that I am nowhere near able to talk to you guys about. But yeah, Corey.
Create the sockets.
Yeah, all these socket stuff. Yeah. What's up? Yeah, for sure. We'll talk about that. Yeah. We talked about it a little bit in OOP about, but I think we mentioned it in groups, not as a class as a whole. So we'll talk about that. Yeah. Cool. So this is what kind of connects us to our MySQL database, right? So my DB connector class that you guys can see here, my public class of DB connector, has how many methods? 17?
I don't know, just don't- yeah.
I think 2 was right? So because I'm going to collapse this, and I'm going to collapse this. Just 2, right? They're big methods, but really they're just 2 methods, right? What are they called?
Call query
Query
and execute.
and execute. What do these methods accept as parameters? A string, right? Cool. So far, so good. What are the type, the return type? What is the return type of the execute method?
Avoid nothing.
Void. So it doesn't have a return
Null.
type. Exactly. Or it's void. Close to null, but it's void. Yeah. What is the return type of my query method? A list call dictionary?
Dictionary full of
Other way. A list
list
full of.
dictionary.
It's the other way. Yeah.
objects.
It's a list of
Dictionaries.
dictionaries. Exactly. We've
key
seen
value pairs.
lists of cards, right? We've seen lists of strings. This is a list of what we would call in JavaScript objects,
Right.
or a list of what we would call in Python
Dictionary.
dictionaries, a list of what we would call in Python hash tables, right? And these dictionaries happen to have a string object key pair value to them.
And we say object here because that pair could be anything. It could be an integer, it could be a
The object? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very good observation there. Yeah. So we have these two methods to use at our disposal. One is for just a simple execution. So what kind of SQL commands do you think we'll be using to execute?
Right.
Like a writing, like an insert statement, right? So insert into table, these columns, values, these values, like that. You don't expect a return from that, right? You're just putting stuff in the database, right? What types of commands do we expect to get from or to use for a query method?
Select.
A select statement, exactly. So if we're selecting stuff, everyone say hi, Chris. If we're using a query, then we are expecting to get stuff back, right?
Yes.
Like if we query for user where first name equals Chris, then we're expecting to get that Chris object back, right? And I'm assuming that object is going to have many, it's going to have a bunch of different key pair values to it, right? So string object key pair values. I could, maybe our dojo has lots of students named Chris. I could potentially get a list of Chris objects. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So execute would be terrific for inserting something into our database.
Yes, exactly. Or perhaps like deleting something from our database, right? I think that's it.
Are
Yeah.
these two methods an example of
Update
get?
would be. Yeah. Sorry?
Are these two methods an example of get and set?
Yes, that's a great way to think about it. Query would be our setting methods, right? And execute. No, sorry, that's backwards. Query would be our getting methods, right? And then executing would be kind of like our setting methods. Yeah. Cool. So I hope that kind of deconstructs this class a little bit. It's not that scary. If you look inside of these methods, they might be a little bit scary. All that we're doing here is we're taking the bits of information that our MySQL server is kind of giving back to us from our query, and we are doing the work of stitching them together into a dictionary for you guys, right? So var dict equals new dictionary of string and object, and we're going to iterate through this reader, which is this object right here, which gets returned from our actual SQL query, and we are adding the key pair values to that dictionary. So that's all of like the nitty-gritty internal code of what's happening. You can completely shut that out if it's confusing to you and just kind of look at it like this. Query and execute. Okay? All right, so we know that we have these two methods. So in my program class, hopping back into our actual application, someone said we're going to need a using statement up here, right?
Yeah, using
How can I make it so that I don't want to use that using statement?
Share the same name.
Share the same namespace. Exactly right. If I just share the same namespace, then these public classes are viewable to each other because they're in the same application, right? But,
Can you
sorry?
go ahead.
Okay.
You're going to answer the question.
No, I was just going to say we could do it either way. So let me kind of showcase that for you guys. Let me... Okay. So I am going to, in my read method, db connection dot whoa, so big autofill there, executes some string. Cool. So my issue here is that I'm missing a using statement, right? So it says, oops, click on the, what? Oh, it's db connector. Cool. So now it can say, do you want to use this using statement, right? If I go back to DB connection and I just change this namespace to, what was it called? SQL
SQL CRUD, you got it?
SQL CRUD? Okay,
Good on it.
SQL CRUD, and save that, then that goes away.
Oh,
Does
really?
that make
So
sense?
what you've done is you've just sent them both to the same.
Might as well, right? I mean, it's all in the same project, so might as well.
Does it matter where you put that db-connector.execute? Anywhere in the file?
Yes.
If you put it underneath the namespace SQL, it would be fine as well.
Well, we're able to call it in this manner without having to instantiate a new DB connector object because it's a non-static class. And then Corey was asking about what static versus non-static mean. We'll talk about that more after I close the video a little bit. Cool. But in any case, we have this method now, these methods now available to us, right? Whoops. right? We can now execute some SQL statement, and we can also query some SQL statement, right? Which of these methods do you think we'll need for the read method? Query. Yes. So I think this is pretty simple. I think it's just going to be a select all from users. Cool. So if you guys haven't noticed already, that's just straight raw SQL, right? I mean, we don't even, I could just literally copy and paste this into MySQL Workbench.
Yep.
Oops. And execute that, and I'm basically taking whatever I can from this query box and just plopping it right into my code, because that's really what these query methods do, right? Cool. So since I'm querying select all from users, I want to store this in some type of variable. What type should that variable be?
Oh, we've actually defined it already, which is a list of dictionaries that has a string.
Yes,
object.
exactly. And since I'm lazy, I'm just going to go in here and be like, oh, this is the return type. Cool, I'm just going to copy and paste it. And we'll call this all users. What? Oh, I need a
Oh, do you need to import the
collections generic, yeah.
Since
Cool.
They share the same namespace. Why does that work?
This is a different namespace, collections generic.
So they're using list.
Yes. So, I have now used my query method from my DB connector class to run that SQL string, which is just a select all statement. And I've also stored it now in my all users list object, right? Which is a list of dictionaries, right? So, what can I do to maybe iterate through this list?
For each statement.
We could do a for each statement, but I think I'm gonna. Could we do a for each statement?
Should be able to. Just call it for like user in all users.
Yeah, we could do a for. I mean, we could for sure do a for each statement, but I'm debating whether I want to do a standard for loop or not. I think standard, because I want to have that int
The counter.
counter. Yeah, var int I equals 0. But you guys are right though. We could have totally just done a for each loop, depending on kind of what you guys need to do. All users dot count length count.
The list is count.
I plus plus. Oops. And let's just console.writeLine for a second. All users of I, their key of, what did I name it?
First name.
First name, last name, fave num, all lowercase. First name, last name, fave num. Cool. So I should hopefully get 9 console.writeLine statements since I have 3 users. I should get Donovan on 21, Chris second is 15, Asher Israel 42. It is? First, it's lowercase. Thanks for double checking though. So let's .NET run. And don't blow up. Perfect. So if I select read, perfect. It says you have chosen read. In read, I could probably get rid of this testing statement. Donovan on 21, Chris second S15, Asher Israel 42. So instead of kind of doing this line by line, let's do something like probably do this a lot cleaner, but hey, who's keeping track? So basically what I'm doing is this is just me concatenating a long string. All I did was I added a little space right here so that my my first name and last names are split with a space, and I also added a little comma here so that their favorite number can just be off to the side. And let's test this one more time. Well, actually, let me do one more thing. I'm going to do the ID also, because we're probably going to want to delete these users at some point, right? And we need an ID for deletes, right? I think it was called use ID user plus something like this. Me?
Just,
Oh, it's just to make it look a little cleaner.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, like a little. So read, perfect. 1, 2, 3. Does that look good, guys?
Nicely done.
Cool. So now I can do something like read again. I could do something like bananas again. I could do something like read again, and it'll just keep querying or keep running whatever code I have. So this is looking a little bit messy, so I'm just going to copy this and put this in a different method. Public static.
I noticed we never, when we write a function, we never write function. We just do the static.
Yes. What's wrong with this?
Do you see void?
Did I miss one? Oh, I do need to say void. I was outside one parentheses though. Cool. So now my code is a little bit cleaner and it makes a little bit more sense, right? So I don't have all of these cases with giant chunks of code in them. I can just compartmentalize these. Cool.
So you don't want it to return anything?
No. It's just gonna get all the users and print them out for me. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So let me see. Let's do the add method. And again, let's make this a little bit more modular. My add case, all it's going to do is call or invoke my add method, which should do what?
Insert.
Oh yeah, I'm going to need an insert statement for sure. I'm going to need to collect some data from the user first, right? So I'm going to need to do something like
You need to ask them some questions.
adding new user. We can do first
What's your first name?
name, last name,
You need to put the read line in.
favorite number. For sure, I'm definitely going to need those read lines. String first name is going to equal console dot read line. Fave. Cool. So when I type an add after it asks me what action I want to choose, my action should switch to add, which should then invoke this method that I've defined as add. And when it invoked, it's going to run this function, right? Which has a bunch of just write lines and read lines in it so far. It's going to say adding a new user, first name, prompt me to type in something which it'll store in this variable. Print last name, again prompt me, which it'll store in last name. Print favorite number, which will then again prompt me, and that'll be stored into favenum. So once I've collected all of these things,
That's the integer, right?
No, my console.readline is always gonna be a string. Yeah. Or when I do you mean in my SQL database? In my SQL database, I have defined it as an integer, but you'll see that my SQL string, like the one up here, select all from users, gets plugged into my SQL, the query, as like a raw string. So as long as I don't wrap that fave num in ticks, it'll be evaluated as an int. Yeah, you'll see in a second. Let's write that statement out then, and then I'll show you guys what's going on.
Yeah, I was thinking with this exactly. Not the favorite now, converting to an int.
Yeah. So what do we need to do?
But you can use
You
bars.
need to get the execute.
Yes, I need the execute method. And the execute method, it doesn't return anything, right? As we saw, it's just a void return type. So we don't need to store it in anything like we had to store this in all users. So I'm just going to call db execute. It does, however, take a string. What is that string going to be?
Insert into.
Insert SQL.
There's a nice explanation of that.
Oh, boom.
It looks exactly like that.
I mean, you can only insert into SQL so many ways. Insert into table name. What's my table name? Users. What's my column name? First name. Last name. Fave num. Then none of that stuff. Values. First name.
Do you want to take what you stored to put in the
Oh yeah, for sure I will.
I think your favnum has an underscore too based on your up above favnum reference to all users.
Thank you. Could always use extra help with syntax.
and outside of your curly brackets, I'm just going to put a single quote around
Yeah,
it.
we'll see what happens here. Cool. So I'm interpolating these values into my string, right? Last name or first name gets plugged into here. Last name, whatever is stored, will get plugged into here, as well as fave num. And we will execute. And I think that's good. Or I mean,
You
I
don't need to worry about an updated ad or created ad.
sorry.
We don't have that.
Ah,
This is just my insert statement, yeah. Although, if you do check the wireframe, it will say build a didn't say that.
They didn't ask for one, but when they were teaching MySQL originally, they said, as a rule of thumb, you should always, always, always have a created at and updated at.
Oh,
So
that
I know
stuff?
most of us put them in there, and they're supposed to be like in parentheses or now with parentheses wrapped around it.
Yeah.
I had an issue getting that to work.
Okay, that's no problem.
It's not in here though.
I'm looking for the prompt where it says after you add. Oh, this one. Build a read function that displays all current user information when the app starts and after every insert. So, after I insert, what do I need to do?
Call your read.
Right. All I have to do is just do this. Right? Because if I hadn't packaged this in this function, I would have just had to copy and paste this into here, which is never good, right? Cool. For created ats, if you have like a created at field, which is typed as a datetime in your SQL, all you just have to do is just do comma now like this, and that should work. Because, as you guys will see soon enough, your SQL string, basically all it does is gets copy and pasted like this and plopped right into here, of course with these values kind of already interpolated. But that's all it does. So if you plop it in and you have like a now in as a part of the string, that's valid SQL right there, right? So you don't need to think about C# code for datetime.now or anything. You could just write SQL code there. But we're gonna run this, and I hear people saying that I'll error out because it looks like they've run into this bug before. But if I do Jim, Bob, 1, I'll get some type of error statement saying check. What? What
When you
happened?
set your favorite number.
Line 55.
Where does it say line 55?
55, 54, 55.
I think that's in my dbconnection.cs.
Yeah.
That's something different, yeah. What? That's a weird error. Let's see if this fixes it. I don't think
it's that line.
I don't think so. Yeah, it's not quite what I'm looking for. What's my issue, guys?
That's something about line 1. Can we go back to the interface?
Yeah.
You can do the insert in SQL Workbench and then paste it into the code.
Yeah, dbconnector.execute insert into users.
Terminator, I don't know if that's necessary.
Oh, am I missing a parentheses?
It looks like it.
Are you serious? Oh my gosh, I am.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
closing.
Stupid. But great debugging practice though. But kind of exactly what you guys told me to do is what I always do first is just copy and paste this guy directly into MySQL to see if it runs. Because if it runs in here, it should for sure run in here because that's literally the action of you copy and pasting it is what's happening here, right? Cool. So now I should get the error that some of the students who've run into this problem were saying that I would get. I'm still gonna get an error, but one that people were expecting to get, I think. No?
Under column.
Which is this one. It says I have an unknown column ASD in my field list. Why do you guys think that is?
Because it's not matching your string. It's not.
Yeah, because let's do that then. Let's copy and paste this again. Now with my parentheses in there. And if this gets evaluated to 42, this gets evaluated to this, and this gets evaluated to this, is this valid SQL?
No.
No, because what type is first name and last name?
String.
Strings. So these need to be wrapped in ticks, right?
Text or single quotes.
Or single
It
quotes.
It has to be.
That's valid SQL, right? Cool. So what I need to do, again, since just to not to be a, what do you call it, broken record, this is going to be interpreted as raw SQL, literally as it is. So if this is going to get interpolated into this value of ASD, then we need those string ticks or quotations around these guys. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool.
Well,
Yeah.
You missed one around first. Okay,
No,
yeah.
it's
on the
just
red.
Yes, and then to Alim's point, fave num, yes, is a string in my server in my program file. But again, when we copy and paste this into MySQL, and that happens to be 42, it's going to get evaluated as an int.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So if we .NET run, let's see, let's do a read, see if it works. It's still working. Add first name, let's do Bob, last name Jones. Bob's favorite number is 123. Great. And then I call my read function and Bob Jones gets added to my users.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
Pretty good.
All right. So, should we do? I'll do delete and then I'll leave update up to you guys. But it's pretty much exactly the same thing that we've been doing. It's all SQL that you guys have written before. It's pretty much just asking the user for information at this point, right? So let's do delete. Delegate. I feel like that's a keyword. I don't want to blow up my program. Delete. And let's write a method for public static void delete. And let's say, okay, if
select the user ID or select the ID.
Yes, yeah, you're. If I am going to delete the user,
Maybe let them see what they can pick.
yeah, for sure. Select all from users. Guess I'm a. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Cool. So I have my all users of ID user, right? So that's my ID. So, like Jessica was saying, we can write a query that deletes according to that ID. So let's do something like console.writeLine. Which user would you like to delete? Please enter. And then I can call my read method. And then I can system, please select the user's ID. And I will store into my string of user ID Cool. Does that look good to you guys? Cool. So I'm going to ask which user would you like to delete. I'm going to display the list of all my current users, then have them select one of those users' IDs. And I'm going to store that in my variable called user ID. And I need to now write a SQL query to delete that user. Will that be a query or an execute?
Execute. Delete.
Yes, you're right. DB connector dot executes. And what is that statement? Hey Google.
You should just delete.
I think I need like a where
Like
keyword.
where ID equals whatever the input is.
Ah, yes. You're right. It's a pretty simple one. So delete from users where ID.
User ID.
User ID.
Your variable.
ID user.
ID.
Oh.
Yeah, I named it something weird. I don't know why. Equals
To that-
user ID.
Yes. And you dollar sign.
There it is.
There you go.
Cool. Delete from users where ID user equals user ID.
Should we have a verifying statement like
Want
sure you
another
want to
read?
delete
To just verify that.
We could build in that. We could build that in. Let's see if this even works though. DB connector dot execute delete from users where ID user. Okay. And then let's read again just to make sure that that user gets deleted. Cool. Moment of truth. .NET run. Choose delete. Which user would you like to delete? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Let's get rid of Bob. Perfect. And then we can do something. Yeah. And then we could. I feel like we should prompt the user again with this. Please choose another action or something. You know?
Right.
Yeah. Like we could do.
Want to bother with capturing a non-valid ID entry?
Yeah. There's like a ton of different validations we could probably do. Right. Delete which ID? I want to delete 5. I want to delete 6.
So just
Cool.
probably not super remember looking at a lot of documentation that says in the like insert, right, where we put the values, to use an at symbol
Mm.
in front of the value because it prevents SQL injection.
Oh, sure.
And every single document that we read said it's pretty much it's a simple solution
Yeah.
to a nightmare problem.
For sure. That's a great point that you bring up. Who knows what SQL injection is?
Inserting SQL commands into HTML.
It's
It through-
basically inserting, so like where the first name field is, you can actually insert a SQL command in there
Yeah.
that will wipe the entire database.
Yeah.
So
You can
instead
type
of my
in-
first name, I type like a command that's literally wipe database, and then instead of reading it as a first name, it takes it as a literal, okay, I'm going to wipe the database.
Since the strings that I am collecting from the user are eventually going to be used in an executable as SQL, if they pass in like malicious SQL, like that they just type in, they could inject that into your code, and they could end up like dropping your entire table.
What's your name? Delete
Exactly.
star from users. That's my name.
That's exactly right.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is.
Can we see where that would happen?
I
where
don't
she's talking
know.
about putting the at.
Okay, go back to the code.
Yeah.
So, scroll up a little bit for me. Just a smidge. There we go. So right there in the curly brackets or curly braces where it says first name, last name, fave num, it most of the documentation says you would just put an ampersand right in there. And
Just like this.
no, it goes inside.
Just like this.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
And I believe that is, I can read again, but Alan and I
Yeah.
found that seems to be the simple solution to SQL injection.
Yeah, that's really great. SQL injection has been was like a pretty big problem a long time ago. It's almost not a problem anymore at all because languages and frameworks like .NET Core have built in super easy ways to scrub the data. That we call it data scrubbing before when it comes in. A lot of frameworks and a lot of languages just automatically do that for you, so to prevent from SQL injection because it's one of the easiest kind of hacks to defend against. But yeah, Jessica, thank you a lot for bringing that up. As to whether it's inside or outside, I don't know, but I'm sure Jessica can post that on the Slack channel. For today, I'm going to call it wraps. You guys can finish up updates, which is the only thing we have left. I heard some people saying, do you want to validate whether or not the number is a valid ID or whether or not you want to, like, are you sure you want to delete user number 2? And then you could click, like, yes or type in yes. You guys can build all of that yourselves. But this is a good starting point for us. So I'm going to end the video now.